advocacy, policy are absolutely vital elements of any initiative which is to do with multi-faith or interfaith working. And if you look at the world today, the three areas which I feel, really difficult at the moment is conflicts and wars. You've got the triple planetary crisis, and you're looking at extreme poverty in so many parts of the world. So these three areas are areas which the faith communities, they have the trust of the communities, they have the reach to support and help. And that interface between the faith communities and government and academia and others, it's just absolutely vital. And being in Brazil, where we've got the Amazon rainforest and there's so much activity. Yesterday I had the opportunity to listen to the environment minister, and she was amazing in terms of just within a year how much she's been able to achieve. We need that leadership. I run INGO, International NGO, a faith-based organization, actually for women, and we have offices in the Global South, and we work on four key areas. We work on agriculture, livelihoods, water, sanitation, hygiene, and health. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the crises that we're having, someone mentioned the word polycrisis, these things that we're having, we need to really understand that we, are in it together, and if we're in it together, we need to collaborate, we need to work together, we need to find ways of having shared values, shared common values that we can promote. And I'll give you an example. I'm from the UK, from London, and I don't know, you must have been watching the news. A couple of weeks ago, we've had far-right riots, and it was initiated by the media misguiding people about a horrendous attack on 3 young children who were murdered. But what happened was, after those riots, the way the community came together and said, no, we're not going to accept this. In lots of parts of England, people came out in the streets like anti-protests against the far right and fascists, and saying that we're here together, we're with the immigrants, we're with the people of colour, and particularly we're with the faith groups. And it was, from my perspective, it was and I'm sure many people's perspectives, it was the Muslims who were being attacked. We were identified as the people who were attacked by the far right. So having other faiths coming together and saying that we're all have shared values and we believe in peace and we want social cohesion, it's a very, very powerful message. And the government listens when they see that people of all different faiths are coming together. The government listens. So I think that's something that's really vital. In terms of climate change and leadership, I think one area that needs a lot more policy and a lot more focus is women and youth. We have at this moment in time in history the largest number of youth on this planet, between the ages of 10 and 25. And so if we can really find ways to capacity build these youth, get them to understand the issues around climate change, around so many policy areas that G20 and I-20 are focusing on, particularly around food, hunger. These are areas that really need to be focused on. And so if we start, developing youth and training them and getting them to understand about consumption, about waste, about from a Muslim perspective, for instance, we say that we should keep our stomachs, have 1/3 for air, 1/3 for food, and 1/3 for water. So we shouldn't be, feeding ourselves too much. So we should be careful in that sense. So well-being and health and food, it's all interlinked. And then if you look at soil, soil depletion, that's another huge thing. In the past, when people were just having coffee grown and all the different types of cocoa beans and others in so many parts of the global south, it ruined the soil. And so we need to find ways of having more localized farms, for the local communities, rather than having, planes and, ships sort of flying and bringing things in, for countries. Countries should be independent in terms of, self-sufficient, not independent. So Bangladesh, which is where I'm ethnically from, has been self-sufficient in rice, which is incredible. I've got a beautiful anecdote. There's a mosque in the UK that was, I think it was going to be attacked, or there were protesters basically lined outside the mosque. And the imam from there, Adam Kelwick, what he did was he and his community inside the masjid, they cooked food. Because the protesters are lined up for hours, because they're going to come and attack the mosque. What did they do? They took the food, took it out, gave it to the protesters, and said, please, you're hungry, protest it after, eat first. So then the people started asking questions, and it just diffused so much, and people said that we want to come and visit your mosque. So it was a beautiful way in which, as you mentioned, how can we, get people who are have a different sort of views. It's about knowing the other. I think that is what's vital. If we look at the UK, one of the reasons why I and my husband, we came into the international development sector, into the charity sector in the first place, was because of 9/11. Because when 9/11 hit, Muslims, we knew that Muslims were going to be besieged and attacked, and it was not a good time for us, as a community internationally and nationally. So we set up an organisation which looks at shared values. So we were very keen to find out what are the shared values between religions. People want a roof over their heads. They want food on their table. They want employment. They want good education, good health care for their children. So that's the type of work that we did. And from that, the type of projects we were doing, whether it was in a church or in a synagogue or in a masjid, a mosque, was helping people, get these basic needs sorted for themselves, help them with education and literacy, help them to get into jobs. So we connected with the job centres, had them actually come to these faith institutions and, talk to people and help them to get jobs. We found role models, so, women wearing hijab like me who were in positions of, whether it's a job, in retail or in accountancy, whatever, we were able to show that there are people like you who are in those positions, to give that encouragement and that confidence, and that was very, very successful. So that's one example. And you were talking about what sort of models we could have. What's an idea that I was thinking of? I was in February. I was in Kenya. And I went from Nairobi to a place called Moyale. So it was, I don't know, in total, I think it was about 900 miles that we traveled, to and fro. So as we were going to Moyale, we stopped at this place called Isiolo. Now, Isiolo, we visited a center there where there was a mosque, and they have a lot of activities for the youth, etc. But one of my colleagues was saying to me that Isiolo is one of the feeding grounds for Al-Shabaab, because why? No jobs, no education, no hope, So what I would love to see is that, madrasa, that, center be supported, be capacity built further so that they could support these youngsters who are on the streets, get them off the streets, help them to have that hope, and be able to, have jobs and a livelihood, so they wouldn't be, radicalized. So I think that is something that I think is really critical and crucial. I think leave no one behind is something which, really resonates with me, because I think, the work that we do is particularly with women. Women are often left behind. They're the ones that left behind to pick up the pieces. They're the ones that are left behind, after, whether it's climate disaster or conflict or, just abuse by, the husbands or whatever. So they're the ones that are left behind, and we need to find ways to ensure that they are supported and helped, you know, with their families, because they're the ones that are always there for their children. They're the ones that are there for the elderly, you know, and they're the ones that are the homemakers. You know, they're the ones that are, you know, really want, you know, keep the home together. And if you look at things like microfinance and everything, if you give it the microfinance to men, you know, they don't do a great deal, but with women, they build on it, they build on it, they build on it, because they want, you know, they're entrepreneurs and they want to find ways to help and support their families. So I think, you know, in that sense, I think we really need to work on not leaving no one behind. But my concern is when it comes to climate refugees. You know, there's no definition, legal definition of a climate refugee. You know, so that is dangerous, because then they don't have recourse to, you know, facilities, you know, support and help wherever they go. So that's something that really needs to be looked at. And then, you know, when you're looking at conflict and you're looking at, you know, how to support, you know, I mean, if you look at the Palestine-Gaza thing that's happening right now, you know, the world is, you know, so silent on it. You know, the governments are now slowly coming up, but you know, in terms of, forget about everything, just focus on the humanitarian aspect of it. You know, not letting food in, support. You know, how can we accept that? You know, we are leaving these people behind, because I think for me as a Muslim, you know, the loss of one life is like the loss of all humanity. You know, so we need to make sure that we value every single life. And we need to, you know, by doing that, you know, we will be, you know, not leaving anyone behind, I guess.